Okay guys, since the last time I left you, I was in southern Utah and we saw Valley of the Gods, all those arches, and we just had a really fun time. But I had one issue with that adventure, and that was there was way too much pavement. There was way too much blacktop that I was driving on to get to these destinations, and I wasn't really spending enough time on the trail. So I thought I'd come up with a remedy for that. And on this adventure, not only are we going to be out here for many days, and yes, I say many because it's going to be 4 days or more, but not only are we going to be out here for that many days, we are also going to be on nothing but dirt, fingers crossed. And why do I say that? Because when I made this route, I designed it all based around a bunch of historical areas, a bunch of scenic views, places I've never been to, and the biggest one, I wanted it to be nothing but dirt. So that's what I'm hoping it is. Now, like I said, I'm hoping in the sense of that there shouldn't be any asphalt out here, and the only time I should have to go to asphalt is if I need fuel. And the reason I say that is because this is 380 miles. The route I designed is 380 miles of nothing but dirt. I'm kind of proud of myself for that. But we are going to see just how well it goes. Now, out here, the trails that I have designed it on from the research that I did are anywhere from a 1 to a 3 in technical rating. Some areas you need to have a high clearance 4x4 to get through. Other areas you could drive your pickup truck or little Subaru down. And honestly guys, I have no idea where those are, what they'll actually be like. That is just what I found in my research. And so far, they haven't been difficult. I got here yesterday. I drove for 12 hours to this exact spot yesterday. It took me about 9 hours to hit the dirt and another few hours to get here because I drove 70 miles on dirt to this campsite. And right now I've got the Jeep all packed up because it's, you know, I've been up for a little bit. I've been enjoying this spectacular campsite because here in just a second I'm going to show you what I got to look at all night, and I had no idea it was here. So watch this. Boom! Look at that. That right there, guys, is part of the Grand Canyon. When I came to this campsite last night, I rounded a corner, had no idea this was here, and I'll tell you why in just a second. But I saw this and I was blown away. This is beautiful. And this is kind of a great way of starting off our journey. Because throughout our journey, one of the things we're going to be doing is following this. We're going to be following the Grand Canyon west. We are on the North Rim at the moment on, you know, public land, BLM, part of the National Forest, things like that. And we're going to be following it. And we have a bunch of, like I said before, some historical things. We got some things to go check out along the way as we cover our 380 miles. And we are currently in Arizona. We will not be ending in Arizona. We'll be ending in another place. This is a kind of a multi-state trip. There's your guess. But where we're going to end, I think, will be absolutely spectacular and a great way to finish the journey. But that is days from now. We have to have fun now. We got to have fun now, you know. We're here. We're living in the present. But a little thing about how I got here. So yesterday I hit the dirt, started driving, and as I said, this was 70 miles. This campsite is 70 miles from the main road, and it was all dirt. Trail wasn't difficult. But what happened was, at a certain point, my mapping system, Gaia, kind of went haywire. it stopped showing me the trails, things like that. All it would show me is the route that I built, which was great. And it showed me all my little pinpoints, but it wasn't showing me all the little side trails to those pinpoints and things. So when I came looking for camp, I was taking a guess on where the side trail was, roughly off of my little yellow line that I had drawn on the map. And it was kind of a shot in the dark on, oh, well, hopefully I end up at this camp. And off of the mapping system, this camp looked like, from the topography, it looked like it was based up along a cliff. You know, like it had the cliff wall. It was the opposite, it is the cliff, which was awesome. But my mapping system has righted itself, so we'll be good the rest of the journey, hopefully. Fingers crossed. It was a little bit of a, well, I don't know. You'll find out when we get there. But this was a spectacular thing to see last night in Golden Hour. The camp near, guys, it is beautiful out here. But I am all packed up, and it is time that we hit the trail and go see some points of interest that I want to see, and I think you guys will find absolutely amazing. Because I've never been out here, lived in Arizona for 20-something years. I have never been up to this part of the state, and I'm super excited to go check it out. So let's get our butts on the trail. That was an epic campsite. That was, like I said earlier, completely a mystery. Had no idea it was there. But we are now back on the route that I created, because that campsite was tucked up a ways. It was out of the way of the main trail. And we're heading towards another lookout point for the Grand Canyon. Like I said, we are going to be following the Grand Canyon west. As the Colorado River flows, and I'm hoping at certain points we'll be able to actually get down near the river. I have some of those areas marked from what I did in my research. I should be able to get down to the river itself, so that'd be really cool to do. But this is going to be fun. I'm really excited to try and do 380 miles on nothing but dirt. Now don't get me wrong, like I said before, I have fuel points that I'm calling ditch out points, to where I can head back 60 something miles in certain areas to civilization, fill back up and go back. We're gonna see just what we can do. I do have my jerry can, you know, I have 5 gallons of fuel and everything like that, which, if my math is correct, I could do the whole adventure without getting fuel with the jerry can. But that's not including mishaps, things like that. So we will see. I have my, you know, like I said, there's multiple spots, so I have my point of no return aspect, of which where I could either use the jerry can to go so I can get fuel or continue on. We'll see when we get there, but that's a problem for later on. We won't be there for a while. But this is gonna be exciting, guys. All right, I was driving along. There's this little pull off right here, which is nice, off the trail. But I was driving along and I looked out my window and this is what I saw. It is spectacular. Oh my God, is it beautiful. Now, if you remember from earlier, we camped over there. Off that ridge right there, I was camped off over there. So we are slowly working our way along the ridge here. But this is a part of the view I could see, but I couldn't see down into the canyon like I could now. Wow, that is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I'm hoping that throughout our journey that there's more views like that, because it is spectacular to see the Grand Canyon, not just from the north side, but from different angles and viewpoints. Oh, I'm in heaven, guys. Absolute heaven. Well guys, this is viewpoint 1 and it's still the Grand Canyon. We camped way over there and that's where we started this morning, and this is just more of the Grand Canyon. I know the Colorado River is down there somewhere and we'll eventually find it, but this is beautiful. Holy crap. There's just all the different little vantage points you get, all the different views. It is absolutely stunning, and there's some blue sky over there, which I'm hoping will come this way, but we'll see. I had to put a jacket on because the temperatures dropped and the wind picked up. God, guys, that is absolutely beautiful. I am so happy right now. But we still have a lot more to cover today and a lot more to see, so let's get going. Update, we did have to do some backtracking. So the route I made, like I said, I made it on Gaia, not a sponsor of the channel, but I made it on there, and everything when I made it said it was a driving route. It never said anything about hiking or anything like that. Well, as we left that last little viewpoint, I found where the trail was supposed to split, and the people in charge of BLM land and the National Forest and stuff like that have deemed the way that I wanted to go no longer accessible to motor vehicles. You could hike it all day and night, but you could not drive it anymore. So we do have to backtrack just a little bit. We're almost done backtracking to where the trail splits off again, and we will start making our way back towards where the trail reconnects. I'm hoping that by doing all this backtracking and taking this, other set of trails, that when I reconnect with what I made, that it's actually drivable at that point. I'm hoping that they haven't marked off like a whole massive section of a trail non-drivable anymore. That's my hope. Fingers crossed. But we are going to turn here and take off and see where we can go. Now folks, no one likes to backtrack, but it is all part of the adventure, and that is why having a great mapping system is so important, because you'll never know what you will find when you have to reroute. Found cows, and they got the babies. So cool. Never know what you're gonna find out here. Turn the corner, boom, cows. It's pretty cool. I would never have found them if I wouldn't have had to backtrack and take a whole new route, which is awesome. They were right there, right close. What? Well, you guys can tell, just kind of got dicked in the head with a dead tree. So there was right out here, I'll show you guys there in a second, there's a tree that was hanging, died, fallen over, and part of it is hanging in the trail, and the Jeep wasn't going to clear it. So I got out to push it over some. And as I pushed it, the solid branch that I was pushing on snapped. And the tree came back and smacked me right in the face. Glad I had my sunglasses on, but it nicked me right here between the teeth, here. None of my teeth are broken or loose, which is great. But it did scratch the gums. Ugh. I got my arm too. So I'm just going to take a second here and chill for a moment before I continue on. This is the tree. Okay, this was the solid branch that I was pushing on, which is now there and there, and this came back and hit me right in the face. All because this upper branch was hanging right here over this part of the trail. Woo, the view at the end of this better be worth it. That's all I can say right now. That's all I can say. All right, everybody. Accidents happen out on the trail, and the best thing to do is just to stay calm, take a deep breath, clean yourself up, and continue on with the adventure. Because if I wouldn't have continued on, I wouldn't have seen this awesome view at the end of the trail. It was completely worth it, but just be aware, guys, that accidents can happen, and those dead trees, you like to hit back. Okay. Took us an hour. I didn't film any of it coming back because that stretch of road right there is long, tons of turns. I'm glad I'm off of it. Okay, this right here was the road that we took to that road. This is where we came down. This road right here is the road I want to follow in the hopes, crossing my fingers, that it'll continue to where all those campsites are that I have marked, and we can continue on, because this is the part of the route that I built. So that is the plan. So, slightly warming up-ish. It's like 52 now. It's been cold all day. But we're gonna continue down this way, guys, and see what we can do. The Jeep, she's holding up pretty well. I'm very proud of her. And the new suspension has been awesome. But let's get going. So glad that we are back on at least the trail itself that I had marked out. Puts us kind of back on course a bit, and also being off of that little trail that was out and back that took us way out there so you could see more of the Grand Canyon. It's nice to be back on a trail that's a little bit wider and doesn't have as many trees up and around it. That trail, though it was, you know, fun, it wasn't super technical whatsoever. You could easily have gone through there in a regular old two-wheel drive truck if you wanted to. Maybe not a long wheelbase, super long wheelbase, but a regular wheelbase. It wasn't super technical or anything. It was just so long, and there were so many just tight little turns that you had to get through. And you are constantly on the edge trying to avoid cacti all over the trail, or avoid you know, doing any kind of damage to massive trees on one side, because some of them had branches that were sticking out pretty far, and trying to avoid them, you know, knowing I got stuff on top that would hit it or off to the side. Just, it's nice to be on a little bit wider of a trail, I do have to admit. But it is time for the hunting of camp. I'm very excited because it is 3 o'clock. It took about an hour to get off of that trail. So my hope is, like I said, that this will continue to be a trail that I can follow, and I can just start checking off those campsites as we go. I'm hoping to get to one of my campsites further down the trail, but we'll see. It all depends on if this continues to stay put, how technical the trail is, which, you know, constitutes how long it's going to take. As the Jeep kind of calms down. I am definitely one of the first people on some of these trails. There is still snow on the ground on this particular little trail that I'm on, and I have been pushing through some snow, and it's been quite a bit of snow, I have to admit. And the Jeep is, you know, it's fighting it. Lots of high revs, pushing through. Was not expecting any of this. It's been so dry out here this whole time. Hang on, more snow. But we are so close to the main trail that I wanted to be on. I just got to get through some of the snow. Ugh. Well guys, welcome to camp. Yes, it is dark. I decided to push through to get to this point, and unfortunately, all you can see is the tent. But right here, which you won't see till morning, is a spectacular view. I'm not going to spoil it, because I am standing on the edge of a cliff. And it is freaking beautiful. But you guys won't be able to see that till morning, because this was a spot I wanted to get to. So when we started tomorrow, we have this to see. We may actually do a little hike in the morning. I haven't decided on that. We'll see how well I sleep. But that is going to be it for tonight, guys. Because it's so dark, it's going to be really hard to show you guys food, things like that, like I wanted to. But that's okay. But I will see you all in the morning. Good morning, everybody. Last night was rough. The wind came through here like a freight train. Holy crap. For at least 3 hours, the tent was just flapping like crazy. So I was awake for those 3 hours. But I promised you guys an epic campsite, because this is what I found last night when I pulled in. Ready? I don't think you're ready. Boom. But it's just not one boom. Boom. This is awesome. This is still the Grand Canyon. This is still considered part of the Grand Canyon, and that is the Colorado River down there. Now, there is a trail actually right behind the camera, and it wigwams its way all the way down to the river. And I think this morning, in a little bit, after I pick up and have breakfast and everything, I think we might go and do that little hike down there, or at least I will. You guys will meet me at the bottom down there and actually touch the Colorado River, because honestly, I've never actually touched the Colorado River, especially not in the Grand Canyon either. So I think we might do that later. Also, it gives me a little break from just sitting in the Jeep all day, because we have all sorts of other things to do. But it's going to be another fun-filled day, guys. But I'm still waking up. And I still got a little bit of packing up to do. But what an awesome spot. I knew when I pulled into camp last night that this was going to be really beautiful in the morning. But now that I've woken up, it's not just beautiful. It's astonishingly beautiful, guys. It is awesome out here. Absolutely love it. Well, guys, I made the hike down here. Here's the Grand Canyon, there is the mighty Colorado River, and I am standing right next to it. And it wasn't actually not that hard of a hike. It was pretty steep. This is the lowest elevation I've been in months. But it wasn't that bad. It just, you came down, literally, turn you here, we came down the face of the Grand Canyon. There is a little trail that actually brings you down here, which was awesome, because it means I didn't have to ford or climb over a bunch of rocks. I was able to actually come down to this point. Now, you're probably wondering, isn't this part of the Grand Canyon National Park? No. Though the Grand Canyon National Park spans hundreds of miles and actually protects the Grand Canyon and the Colorado River, there are actually tiny little pockets throughout the western half of the Grand Canyon that is actually protected by BLM. So this is technically BLM land that I'm on. A little further down is probably the national park again. Back up that way is the national park. Right here is BLM. Go figure. But a funny thing is the Grand Canyon and the Colorado River are protected by the national park. The national park didn't become a national park till 1919 by President Woodward. And then it was declared a National Heritage Site in 1979. And the first concept of protecting this place was formed back in like 1850. Like 1850 was the first aspect of, hey, let's protect this land, and it didn't take into effect till 1919, February of 1919. And then become a World Heritage Site till 1979. Like, that's crazy. It is beautiful. And that is the reason why they protected it, was to keep its beauty. It is absolutely gorgeous down here, guys. I am so happy I decided to make the hike down here. It was absolutely worth it, because you can't just be driving all the time. You gotta enjoy the little things. Now, a bucket list thing of mine has always been to touch the Colorado River and the Grand Canyon. Well, I am standing in the Grand Canyon. That's the Colorado River. I think it's time we touch some water. Grand Canyon, Colorado River. There you go, guys. I finally can tick that off my bucket list. I have touched the Colorado River and the Grand Canyon. What an absolutely fantastic day. Well, that was a nice little hike, and it is absolutely beautiful to be able to come back up here, see where I was down there. But it is time to get our butts in gear, get on back on the trail. But it is going to be another great day. That was just a great start to it. Now, if you're hearing a squeaking, that's actually the shocks. I don't know why, but the shocks squeak quite a bit. It's just the rear shocks. The rear shocks are very much squeaky, and it started midday yesterday, and it stops on and off. I don't know. I haven't got a clue. Guys, it's going to be a little loud in here. Everything's kind of rattling, but we are on one of the county roads heading towards St. George. And the reason why is, one, we're going to get fuel. I've made the decision we're going to get fuel. We're at about 1/4 of a tank, and even though I have the Jerry on top that's full, we'd have to get fuel tomorrow if I used it. So I made the decision to get fuel now, because when we came back up, when I finally got back up on top of everything from where we were at this morning down by the canyon, there were a lot of dark storm clouds, and there was just dumping rain. And I decided, well, it's right along. I turned on my Zoleo, looked at the weather, and the path that it was going was right over top at everything I wanted to go to. So I said, all right, we're just gonna go get fuel and kind of let that storm blow past, because past it is blue skies. So I'm gonna let that go past, because if you have never been in the deserts before, when it starts to storm and there's lots of rain, the desert does not soak it up. It just leaves it pool. And everything I wanted to go to, it would have just made it 5 times harder to get to them. It could have become impossible. Some areas could have become so muddy it would have not have happened. So my hope is letting that pass by getting fuel and coming out of my way to do this. By the time we get back out this way again, the storm will have gone bye-bye and the sun is going to be nicely out like it is now. I skirted around the storm just in time. I had a little bit of it hit my windshield before I made a turn and basically went completely out and around the storm. My hope is that this is the only bit of the storm. It wasn't supposed to be this kind of weather this week, but Mother Nature, as we all know, likes to throw lots of curveballs at me and prove me wrong. Alright guys, I know it's a little windy, but this is actually a really cool place. This is actually called Tassi Ranch. And what Tassi Ranch is it is one of the only settlements out here that actually succeeded way back in the day. Now, this area is made up of a bunch of different springs and has roots dated back to 1870 by the Native Americans, but it wasn't until 1920 by a man named Ed Yates that actually settled on this area here. And what's funny is Mr. Yates settled on government land. The government actually owned this land way back when, but when Mr. Yates settled on it and he built all these buildings behind me, he built by hand, and he had the land changed over to his name, so he owned it. And he owned it for a very, very long time. And there was a point where he did leave the land and left it to some people to handle, because they used to do cattle and there was some other mining that was taking place out here. But when he left the land, this whole place went to ruin. It destroyed, the people didn't uphold it, and so when he came back, he actually kicked the people off his land and refixed up all these buildings to a perfect state so he could live back on the property. Now, in today's world, these are historic buildings that are protected by the federal government. And honestly, guys, they're in pretty good shape for being as old as they are. They're over 100 years old, and they're still in pretty decent shape. But Mr. Yates, when he retired from ranching and mining and doing all this, he gave it over to a family called the Whitmore family. And the Whitmore family had this land till 2001. In 2001, they sold it to the federal government. So the federal government, who owned the land in the beginning, lost it and then had to buy it back, which is actually, I think, is hilarious. But this place has been well preserved, guys. Now, you cannot enter these buildings. You do not want to enter these buildings. One, there's hantavirus, there are bats in there, and there is a ton of asbestos and black mold. But they are in actually pretty decent shape, despite how, you know, they're 100 years old. They actually look pretty good. But you don't want to enter the buildings, any of these things, and you want to be very careful when you're walking, because you are allowed up on here. There is a gate. Please shut it behind you. But just be careful when you're walking through the grass, guys, because there are so many springs. This is a massive area for wildlife. So you're talking snakes are in the grass, all sorts of other things. So you just want to be careful. But this is an absolutely cool find. To think that this was one of the only settlements out here that actually succeeded. Don't get me wrong, there were other settlements, there were tons of mines, but all those never succeeded. This did, which is pretty cool to think that this succeeded all the way till 2001 when they handed it over to the government. This is a pretty cool place. Now, it is almost time for camp. We are getting close to time for camp, and I wanted to get the camp early after yesterday getting in late. Now, you cannot camp here on the ranch at all, but you can travel down this way to where a bunch of the creeks meet and head out towards the Colorado River. Now, we're not going to get near the Colorado River, but we can get to where some of those creeks meet, and I have some campsites that could be a good potential marked out. So we're going to go check those out, and hopefully they pan out. Otherwise, my other ones are back that way. But we're going to go down that way. But this is pretty cool, guys. 100 years of success right here, and they're still holding up. Also, what does that tell you about buildings way back in the day? They're still up over 100 years, and modern day buildings break after they hand you the keys. Go figure. Alright guys, let's get back on the road. Alright guys, we have made it to camp, and what a day it has been. Starting off out there on the rim and actually going into the Grand Canyon and touching the Colorado River was awesome, and I got to check off something off my bucket list. And then, honestly, most of the day was spent driving around. So I ended up having, got fuel, avoided a massive storm while I was in town. I looked up the weather patterns, things like that. Then I took an alternate route out here, and then we got to see Tassi Ranch, which is really cool to see that. But so far on this adventure, I have driven 270 miles. That is right, 270 miles on dirt. Just dirt, which has been awesome. And I've only touched asphalt for that little bit of time that I had to get fuel. And honestly, guys, in total, it was like 10 miles. Because it was 5 miles to the gas station, 5 miles back to the trail. It has been great. But that 270 is not including the trail that I had to take to get to the gas station and back. It was just back on my trail system, which means we have just over 100 miles to do left of this journey, which, guys, it has been awesome. And we probably will not finish it tomorrow, but we will here in the next couple days. And it'll be sad, but I am having an absolute blast. It has been so nice to get out here and explore an area of Arizona that I've never been to before. It's been great. And we've been chasing the Colorado River. Remember how I said at Tassi Ranch we'd stay near where a lot of those little creeks and things connected? They connect right here. They're all connected at this point, and this flows out to the Colorado River. Now, it looks kind of dried up. There actually is water down there. It's a little. And there are some cows grazing. There is some water down there, and it does flow out that way to the Colorado River, so it is great. And their bugs are a little everywhere. But tonight, we are making something that I've never made at camp before, but I love making at home, which is Cajun pasta. It's going to be a chicken Cajun pasta dish. So, in here I got some water. We're going to get that boiling. Got some water going. Let that get to a boil. Just got some plain Jane pasta, enough for me. And maybe another meal, we'll see. At least seconds. And then in here we have our chicken. And I do have some carrots. Did bring carrots. I don't have a peeler, but that's okay. I'm just going to chop them up. Once the pasta's done, everything's going to end up in this pot. We're going to take out said chicken, and we are going to pierce it. There. And yes, I'm smelling the chicken. So the last time I took chicken out, it was still frozen, and then I let it de-thaw while it's in the fridge. What happened was I left it till like the last night to do it, and I was out for 3 days. The chicken had turned bad, and it stank. So that is why I kind of smelled the chicken to make sure that it was still okay. It's only been in there for 2 days. Well, 3 if you count today, but it smells just fine. But what I do is I remove the skin, and what I'm also going to do is I'm going to pull out the bone. So I use chicken thighs just because I like the way the flavor is, and they stay, tender a lot better than a chicken breast. And they're a little more forgiving, where a chicken breast is not quite as forgiving. I'm going to toss that in there. Okay, now that I have all the chicken skinned and deboned, I'm going to cut it up. Now, one thing I did forget on this trip is my cutting board, unfortunately. I took it in to give it a nice thorough washing, and I completely forgot it on the drying rack. Mistakes were made. Alright, the pasta's ready to go in. I've got all the chicken cut up. Next, I'm going to recover that some. I'm going to grab One of my favorite things to take to camp, cooking spray. And it's one of my favorites because before I had these lovely non-stick pans, which work just great, I had regular pans, and when I put the cooking spray, if I didn't have it, everything stuck to it and it was impossible to clean, and I'd waste a ton of water trying to. Now I take this, not only does this heat up really quickly, it also makes it so it's like really non-stick. It's just like a one wipe clean out, which is awesome. All right. Ooh. This is gonna be tasty. Now what I like to do with this is, though it all gets mixed in at the end, while the chicken's cooking, I like to flavor it with a little bit of the Cajun seasoning already. And the reason I do that is it ensures that the chicken has a lot of that Cajun flavor. My pan is trying to overboil on me. But it allows that chicken to get a lot of that flavoring, and then when I mix it all together, it'll get even more. So, one of the other little bamboo spoons I had molded, so it ended up getting thrown out. So I'm making this into a dual-wielded spatula. One side for the chicken, the other side to spin the pasta. That smells really good. I'm excited. Now what I'm going to do with the carrots is pretty straightforward, guys. I'm going to cut them down. I'm only going to cut about 3 of them. I've been eating these as I drive. I'm just going to cut them down, nice little cubes. I'm going to set them off to the side, and then they'll go in at the end with the pasta, the cook, and everything else. And if you're wondering, yes, I'm using the table as a cutting board, and yes, I wiped the table completely down and sterilized it before doing so because it sits on top of the Jeep. I may be crazy, but I'm not a savage. And it's coming along nicely. And the pasta is just about done. So another thing I'm going to be adding to this, and sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Normally I put it on the side, but honestly, guys, in the effort of keeping it simple, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to take my can of green beans and I'm just going to add it to everything else. Whew! That wind likes to pick up now and again. So what you didn't see me do was I drained some of the water out of the pasta because the pasta is done. The carrots are in there starting to cook. What I'm going to do now is, though I know the chicken isn't completely done, it's going to finish cooking in the pot with all the other seasoning and ingredients, and I'm also going to add my green beans in here. This is kind of becoming a one-pot wonder, if you will, but it's going to be Cajun pasta. So now that the chicken's almost there, which is perfect, I'm going to take that and throw it all into this pot, and I'm going to give it a nice good stir. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add even more of the Cajun seasoning, like I said. Now I love Cajun food, I love Cajun seasoning, so I like adding quite a bit, especially when I'm making pasta, so that it actually will coat everything. And there still is a little bit of water within this pot to help it kind of bind together. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover it like so, actually kind of half cover it, and I'm just going to let that cook. And while that's cooking, I'm going to clean up my mess here. my stuff is clean, and it is done. I'm very excited. I'm also very hungry. Set that there. Ooh, smells awesome. Start with this little bit and then I'll get more. But this looks absolutely amazing. Hot. Mmm. This is awesome pasta. Well guys, I'm going to enjoy my dinner, relax for the rest of this evening, and I will catch you all in the morning. Now, about 290 miles. Awesome. I'm so happy.